Okay, today we're going to learn how to build and install a vista screen. So what we need for tools and parts are all laying on this table. We have a cut list. This is generated using an Excel sheet that's provided. And we have miscellaneous parts. We have the screen cartridge, some magnets, an insert in the top, bottom track, top track, the sliding bar cover, the strike or catch frame, if they call it on, as they call it on the spreadsheet, and then the cover cartridge, or the cover that goes over this cartridge when you get installed on the door. So all I'm going to do is work my way down through the cut sheet. It is showing in metric and imperial. We're always using imperial, and we'll see here the different things. So we'll quickly look at what each one means. So we have a top rail, which is this part here. It's pretty easy to tell because this is a single door that we're installing. If it's a double door, you do want to, and get into larger doors, you do want to make sure you have the right one. The difference between this and the side cartridge cover, a little bit larger, and has some T-slots in here for the weather stripping. So first thing we're going to do is do the top rail. Top rail says we need to be at 35 and 1/8 inches long. What we're going to do is find this here. There's these two notch outs. You want to locate those, and you always measure the length from this side, not here going over here. It's important to keep these. So we're going to cut this far end off. I like to have the parts lying flat like this and measure. So we're going to be 35 and 1/8. Mark that. I'll take it over to the saw. Important thing with the saw, always a good idea to make sure that the bench is cleaned off. In this case here, we've got a bunch of aluminum shavings and miscellaneous things that can damage the surface of the painted product. So we want to get that cleaned off. And you can do that between each cut. The other thing is with these long lineals, you may notice as we're going through the video, I tend to hold it up and slide it around rather than set it down on the table and slide it flat. This way, if we're going to damage anything, it's just going to be at that far end. Bring it into the saw and set it down. The block we're using here is high enough to support that fully. You want to make sure you use a block like that rather than a short block. And line it up and cut it. All right, so we have it now cut to length. We're going to drill another hole about 3 inches from the end using a 3/16 drill bit. Now what I like to do for installation purposes is to add some tape, VHB tape, onto the back side. This makes installing it onto the door much easier, and you'll see later how that works. So we're going to apply the tape just down the center. Okay, also what we need to do is add the weather stripping in. And that's what those T-slots are for. Even with the end, and then we'll take a knife just to trim them off. Now also what I did, just drew a little sketch of the door we're installing it on, so we know whether it's a left or right hand hinge door. In this case it's a right hand hinge. The screen is going to be mounted to this side and then pull across. So it's important to know that for the next step here is we're going to locate these little tabs again. And I'm going to lay this flat as if I'm looking at the tab goes, or the slot goes to the inside of the door, to the side that the screen's going to be mounted to. Find that, lay that down. In this case, it's right hand. And we're going to take one of these here, and it's meant to go in here. And they're a little bit of a trick. I find if I get just above, set it above, and push it down in, it's going to click down into that slot. Okay. Last thing on this is to add the end caps. So we have 2 end caps in the kit. And slide them on. Okay, so now they're in place. Header's done. Top cap is done. So we just check that off the sheet. Next is the top rail inner guide, which is this plastic part here. We're going to cut it. The length, that is saying 35 and 1/16. Much else you need to do with this right now, you can just be slid in by that top rail. Okay, so that part is done. Next is the bottom rail and spacer. Right now there's actually no spacer for this screen system anymore. We'll change that up and get rid of that. So it's just a bottom rail. So that's what this is right here. So it is very important that you figure out which is the inside and the outside. And if you look at the edge, you can tell that it's got a ramp effect to it. Again, very important if we're installing it on the exterior of a door where we have a sill that's going to have this 5-degree slope to it. So I know this side is the outside. I'm going to bring it over here, make that a bit easier for me. Now you can see here that there's each end of it's got slightly tapered ends. The tapered end goes to the inside of the door. So in this case, it's a right-hand door. That's this side. To the outside, I need to measure from the right hand across. And we're at 35 and an 1/8. 5 and an 1/8. Double check again. I'm on my right-hand side. I got that taper there. It's angled towards me, and we're gonna now cut that. That's done. Next is catch frame with top cap. Okay, so just move this aside. And we're gonna bring out so this is the catch frame right here. And it has a T-slot in it for magnet. And then we also have the sliding bar cover here. Again, T-slot with a magnet. And we have the 2 magnets. Now, these, you can't flip them. Well, you can flip them 180 degrees to each other, which can cause issues because as magnets go, they're going to want to try and repel each other at some point. So as these are sitting and we know that they're magnetized correctly, we're going to want to put these into the 2 parts so that they stay in the same way. So if you can imagine that when these are meant to meet, the catch frame and the sliding bar cover, they're going to want to catch like that. So I lay them out like this, mirror image of each other, and then the catch frame is going to be the longer part. And I can tell here that my magnets, the way they've been set up, this is the longer one. So we want to make sure we put the longer one into the catch frame and the shorter one into the sliding bar cover. And we're going to just do that actually pretty much at the same time. I'm going to slide this in there. And then this here, go on there. From the opposite end, that's fine too. What you might find is very often, like in this case here, they've crimped the one end of the parts to stop the magnet from moving. So if you're going to start on that side, you may find it pretty hard to actually slide into place. Again, this is an example here where there's no cap on the end, but it doesn't want to move any further because it's crimped it. Okay, now we're done putting the magnet in. Set that sliding bar cover aside for a moment. Take the catch frame. There is a top cap that slides into it. It can only go one way. One way to know which side is the top on this is there's going to be 2 screw holes at the top, and then the rest of the screw holes are evenly spaced out the rest of the part. Set it on there. You're going to slide that in. Now, very often it gets pretty hard here to slide any further, so what I do is just take this and tap it on the floor, and now we're there. So we're going to set that, making sure it's against the top cap. Nice thing with this, with the magnet in, it attracts the extension or the measuring tape and holds it in place for you. Okay, so this is the end that we've cut off. Now that that's been cut off, you can see that the magnet's going to want to just slide out. So taking these channel locks and compressing down the bottom corner here. Obviously scuff the paint, take some touch-up paint, touch that up. We've got one more thing to do to this before we move it off. Same thing, we're going to use the tape as a way to hold it in place. Just run the tape down the center. Okay, so that's now done. Next is the sliding bar cover. So we have the sliding bar cover here. I'm just sliding the magnet to see which side's got a bit of the stop on it. It's down at the bottom, so I'm going to measure from that end and come up. Flip it around. As earlier, just take the part, slide it along, bring it over to the saw so that you got very little movement. Even if there's micro movement, I take my fingers here and hand and just support it and lift it up and slide it back and forth ever so slightly. Line the blade up with the mark. So we just need one cut. Magnet will slide out, but it's okay. But when we put it into the screen, that won't happen anymore. So we're just going to leave that. All right, sliding bar cover is done. Main screen cartridge cover. So that's this guy right here. There is no real top or bottom to it, so you can measure from either end. Cut side down here. You can see we still have a screw hole, so we're not going to have to worry about it. If we cut beyond that screw hole, then you're going to want to put one more in. But other than that, you don't need to worry about it. We'll use tape again. Done. Last thing, leave the best for last, is the cartridge with the screen and all that fun stuff in it. So we have a bottom. The bottom looks like this. It's got a bit of a track, caterpillar type of base to it. Setting these, especially the cartridge, up the same way, measuring from the same side, cutting the same way every time, and removing parts, and then that way it makes it repeatable and easier to remember how to do this. So what I prefer to do is I have the big plastic box at the back. I have my bottom towards my left-hand side because I am left-handed and I like to use my tape measure this way. And this is the top of the screen. So we have coming out of the screen some cords that run throughout the screen, and it is absolutely imperative that these do not get cut. But we do need to remove them because we need to cut the screen down. So we're gonna take both of these caps out, and sometimes they come out easier, sometimes they come out harder. You slip them out, okay? And then what we're gonna do, you can let them fall to the floor, that's fine. We're gonna take the the strings and slide them around away from the top of the screen. So now we have no more strings up in this area. Makes it safe for cutting. We're gonna double check our measurement. It's gonna be 91 5/8. Yeah, hold that string together, pull that string together, and then hook on right at the bottom and measure up 91 5/8. And we're going to take the screen, take it over to the saw, making sure to hold it because it's going to want to come apart without any tension on it. So we want to hold it together as one unit. Now when cutting this, we're going to mark here, and the aluminum is going straight horizontal, so that likes to catch. It's important to put a lot of pressure holding it back against the fence nicely, or solid, more solid, and so that we've got as much tension on it as possible. And we're just going to cut down through it. I would not go out here and go in, start to cut down through it. Once you get to the aluminum side, just take your time and let it cut itself through. You're going to want to bring these strings back up to the top and work your way back towards the screen with the parts. So you have this part here. Do this one first. And see that there's a little roller there. It really only can fit one way. Slide that on. Making sure that there's no strings, everything comes through and there's no strings kind of coming through the side or getting caught. We have the second one. So you can just take your time, pull the strings through. It'll make life easier. And same thing here. These strings are going to come up through that channel, and this has got an adapter there or a tooth there that's going to go into that channel. I'll pull this right off the edge here. And then just check again, make sure everything's coming the way it should. So we've got strings coming across from the back. Strings coming up here, coming out here, everything looks nice. Right? These little hanger guys here, they're little clips that we're going to put on the screen. So we're going to open the screen up and open up all the pleats so that if there's any, sometimes the saw can kind of melt the fiberglass together. And what we're going to do is we're going to find center, roughly. Take one of these guys and you're going to slide it like that. Okay, and we're going to flip it over and clip it onto that pleat. Now try and make sure it's on a pleat, not on a surface of a pleat, not on an edge of it. And press it in to hold it into place. Okay, that's how it looks after it's been done. Now depending on the width of the door, double doors for sure, you want a minimum of 3 of these. On a single door, depending on how the width of it is, very often I'll just do 1, or we can do up to 3 on a wider single door. In this case, I'm just going to do 1. And now you can see that this ring is actually not solid. There's just a little bit of a tab there that is open to it. And we're going to slide the strings into it. Okay, all that's doing is these strings are running across the top, and it's to help hold the pleat in place, the screen in place. Okay, so we're done with that. I'm gonna wrap it around this leftover. Gonna pull on the bottom, making sure it fits. In nice. And pull on these strings a little bit, all of them. What that's gonna do is just tighten up anything that's sitting loose. And that's it. Screen has been all pre-cut, ready to be installation. Next video will show you how to install it onto the door.